Hello, everyone, and welcome to our third series of our Culturally Competent Care webinars. I'm really delighted to have our next guest, Eddie Chan, who's been generous enough and kind enough to come and talk to us in this fireside chat. And what we'll be covering here today with Eddie in an informal but informative chat is his work supporting Chinese communities and people from the Chinese diaspora, particularly living with dementia and their experiences of getting help and accessing support. So welcome, Eddie. Thank you for coming to talk to us.
Hello, Jerry. Nice meeting you.
Great. And what perhaps we'd like to do first is just maybe if you give a few minutes to just introduce yourself and tell us what you've been doing over the years.
Oh, that's a long story, really. I came to the UK in 1971 and then went to university to do a double engineering degree in civil engineering and structural engineer. So I qualified as an engineer at the end, and I worked in an engineering company for over 20 years. And there's loads of things happening, obviously, progressing. At the end, I became a director of the international arm. And I helped the company, the consultant company, to set up the first Sino-British highway consultancy joint venture in China. And since then, I was flying in and out of the country, say 3 or 4 times a year, which is quite stressful, really. But then later on, I decided not to do that anymore because my middle son wasn't well. So I decided to stay in the UK and work as a carer, or 50% as a carer. So in year 2000, I found this charity advertising for a directorship job. Is called the Chinese National Health Living Center. And I applied and I got the job. And when I joined, the office is only in London. There was only a couple of staff working there. But after I joined, I expanded that center as the director of the Healthy Living Center, which is helping the Chinese community and the word we use diaspora. I like that word because a lot of people still think that the Chinese community here in the UK is a homogeneous mass, but it is not true. It's depending on where these people come from. They all speak different dialects, and they look quite different, actually. I mean, I don't know whether you know that even in China alone, there are 56 minority ethnic groups.
Oh, wow.
Yeah? And people like me, that looks like me, which is what we call Han, H-A-N, Han, is 90% of the whole thing.
Yes.
So the Hangs themselves also speak different dialects, different, like Cantonese, and as an example, which Cantonese like us always consider Cantonese as a language more than just a dialect, because it's the most common language overseas for the Chinese. So it doesn't matter if you go to Australia, Canada, or the US, people like us talk to each other in Cantonese. The reason behind that is the Cantonese are the first group of migrants leaving Hong Kong and southern China, a province called Canton in the old day, but it's now called Guangdong in Mandarin. And they then decided to move in different parts of the world, set up their business, even working in America, as an example. They actually helped the Americans to build the railroad linking the West and the East. And that was, 150 years ago. That's a long time ago. And lots of these people also joined what they call merchant.
Merchant Navy.
That's right, merchant navy. They call merchant navy, and the type of work they do are mainly doing the laundry. They're doing the cooking. So this is how they learn the skill. Doing the washing, doing the ironing, and also doing the cooking for the people working in the ship.
Yeah.
So this is why in the early day, when I was early days, 1940s, probably straight after the Second World War, and these are the people that came to the UK and set up laundry shops many years ago. But this is well before them setting up restaurant or takeaway shops.
Yeah. So they were like the pioneer.
They are like the pioneers. Yes. They came to settle in Liverpool to start with, and also Limehouse in London.
Yes.
And those are the two places where these seamen decided to settle and live in the UK. And many of them actually in those days found very difficult to find Chinese ladies to get married to.
Yes.
So they married, the British people, the English people, and so on.
Yes.
And this is why there are so many people that look so Western here in the UK now. If you go to the East End, go to Liverpool, still have a Chinese surname.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, but if you go to these places, you can still see some of the road and streets have Chinese name attached to it, like Peking Road, Canton Street, that type of things. You can see them. I mean, as you know, Chinese have different religions. I mean, obviously, you probably the traditional one is Buddhism, but now a lot of them become Christian, become Catholic. Some of them are, Muslim as well. I mean, there is a large. If you go to China in certain provinces, you actually see a lot of mosques set up there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and people, I'm sure you heard about Xinjiang. Xinjiang as a province, nearly 100%. I won't say 100%, but over 90% of the people are Muslim.
Okay.
Yeah, they practice Muslim there, and they do look Middle Eastern as well.
Okay.
They don't look that like Han people like myself. I mean, we are very typical looking Chinese.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's interesting.
Give you an example. 16 years ago, I always want to set up some type of extra care home in London because everyone have care home for their own people. Like the Jewish people is very famous. They have their own care home in Golden Green. Within that care home, they have dementia units as well to look after their own people and do their own fundraising. And the Indian again look after the elderly people and set up care homes that have staff and warden that speak the language and they cook the curry for lunch or dinner for them. But we Chinese don't. We are really the most diverse Chinese group in this country. I mean, ask yourself, can you name me a place that don't have a Chinese restaurant or takeaway shop or Chinese fish and chips? You will struggle. Every single
place you can think of, town, small village.
Large village, we'll have one. Obviously, if you talk about village staff, 30 people, we don't have one. But any reasonable size.
Some of the larger villages do, though.
You're bound to find them.
Yes.
Because of them do not want to compete with each other, compete against their uncle or friends. They decided, right, that I'm on this spot now. If you want to open a similar type of things up,
you need to go have 50 miles or whatever.
Just don't come near me.
Yes.
And the result of that is will make us
more remote from each other. So
this is why when I first set up this healthy living center to help people, we found very difficult to reach the people that require our support. So at the end of the day, we set up a lot of remote and telephone services. Now, example is counseling, for instance. Counseling in Chinese is a skill. Apart from having that skill, the language is so important. And also the counselor will understand the upbringing and the culture of the people that they're helping. I'm sure if you talk to a counselor here, all right, you can speak English well, okay, that's fair enough. But imagine if your parents, I don't know, one of your elderly relative would not be able to communicate well in English, and they have to end up, getting an interpreter in. It doesn't work. I tell you now. To start with, the Western trained counselor do not understand what the clients really is suffering. Even if the translator can translate that to them, clearly they cannot really appreciate what's happening.
The
same thing applies to seeing a doctor.
Limited.
Yes, even same thing applies to seeing a doctor, because we Chinese, not more than just the Chinese as a group, obviously, would describe things quite differently with their own language. And then by the time the translator translate to them, say, this gentleman is saying his heart fire is too bad. He's feeling damp and hot. These are actually Chinese terms that the people use
to describe their feelings.
To describe their feeling, what's wrong with them inside. Because these people still have great belief in traditional Chinese medicine. So a lot of the time they still follow what they call the yin and yang balance. I'm sure you heard about this. Yang is the positive, the hot side, and the yin is the negative, the cold side of things. If your body is not balanced, if not having the yin and yang balance, you'll be ill.
Problems,
you will have problems. This is why when these people describe the issue, they usually relate to that
heat,
type.
hot and cold, and damp,
they've got too damp,
dry, and
they even the whole mind, the feeling is still related to the way they describe it. So interpreting most of the time, particularly applied to counselling, doesn't work. It's
really quite complex.
This is why we used to do a lot of face-to-face counselling. But because of COVID and everything, all our counselling now, even today, is remote.
Right.
So the clients can pick up, an app that they prefer, whether it's Skype or FaceTime. It's up to them.
Yes.
Or WhatsApp, WeChat. It's up to them.
But it's accessible, more accessible to people.
Maybe you want to talk
but that's really helpful to understand, your background and what you've been doing and where things, because it's helped to set the scene. So what I'll do now is ask a few questions specifically about with the kind of focus on dementia and the work you've been doing there and how that may be impacting. So how important do you feel the role of the family in healthcare decision making is within the Chinese diaspora, and how perhaps might this differ from, let's say, UK practices?
In general, again.
We know it's general. It's in general.
Because I can't say
specific.
If you're from Malaysia, you do that.
Indeed,
from Hong Kong,
indeed.
The bad thing about dementia is we have a very bad translation. Chinese translation for dementia is derogatory, the terms. Now, dementia to you and me, okay. Dementia is a term, it's a medical term. Fine, we accept that. But you don't call people demented. You say if you call someone you're demented, people will look at it differently. The same thing applied to this dementia translation in Chinese. It basically tell you, 老人痴呆 is to start with. You say that this person is old, and then you got nutty and mad. So it has a very big negative attachment to it.
Indeed.
So when Chinese family have someone got dementia, particularly the elderly parents, they basically lock them up. In general, they just say, don't go out. You get lost. I won't be able to find you. You go to the toilet in the shopping center. You don't come out, and it will take us a long time to find you. So, stay at home, hide them, in the room.
So there's a sense of maybe shame and stigma about it.
It's a stigma.
Yeah.
It is a taboo subject that people don't want to talk about, or even seek close friend and relative to come and support. Because I don't know whether you're superstitious or not, but a lot of Chinese relate these type of things to karma.
Things that they may have done or their family members may have done in the past.
Bad thing they've done.
Yes.
Karma and retribution.
Yes.
Is or your grandson got brain cancer because you have done so many bad things.
Yes.
Is related to that. So a lot of family rather not to talk about this.
Yes, because I think it reflects badly on them as a family.
Yeah, it's a family. So they rather support them, but their support is all wrong because in terms of dementia, the more you isolate this person and not encourage them, as you know it, you specialize in dementia, put them in the prison type of environment.
They'll deteriorate even
so
faster.
quickly.
Yes.
So quickly because
lack of stimulation, lack of any interest.
So this is why we set up the China. When I said we, it's the Chinese Welfare Trust set up the first Chinese-speaking Emerald Nurse project in this country, and we have 440 Emerald nurses here, or nurses who specializing in dementia, to help people living with dementia and the family.
Yes.
But we have none of them can speak Chinese. So we set this up. And after running for a year and a half, we already supported more than 100 families here in London.
Wow.
That have people living with dementia.
Yes.
And when you said about dementia, I think it's just we have to correct people's
perceptions and attitudes.
Attitude.
Yeah.
If you get dementia, encourage them to go out even more. Go to the park.
Yes.
Take some photograph.
Yes.
Play some card games if they can still, see things.
Indeed.
There are lots of things
that you can do to help that person still connect. And feel connected to
people
the world around them.
So thankful to our nurse, our Emerald nurse. After doing these type of things, they become more talkative. They communicate more.
Yes.
Yeah,
so, absolutely. I mean, and obviously we've got within QCS, we've got our dementia centre, we've got our PAL assessment and checklist, and that's very much based on understanding the person. That person is still there. And there are ways that you can try and keep connected with them and sort of maintain those connections with them in a meaningful way, because it's based on their interests, their life story, things that will resonate with them.
That's right.
And you can use that and still use those ways to connect across even generations. Because yesterday we had Carl Case talking about his resources, but the similar principles apply. It's using that person's past life history, life stories, and using that to build those connections, maintain those stories.
We run similar to a Chinese version of Dementia Cafe. We do that. We have carer support group. We run carer support group. We have Dementia Cafe. We have awareness workshop. All this comes in now is becoming a main theme for the members of our own community to understand and appreciate more about. It's not the end of the world if you get dementia.
Absolutely.
Because you just have to accept that everyone die anyway. You die of something.
Sure.
Even if it is not dementia. So if you got dementia, just just say, right, we have to face the situation. Let's do something about it.
And there's things there are more. There's more information, but also more knowledge about how you can support people and help them to maintain, their well-being for longer. Yes, we know it's a progressive disease, but people with the right support, that progression can be slowed. They can still maintain a good quality of life. And but it's also important for families and family carers to get the right support too. So they are doing things that will help to enable that person rather than detract from them. And that's where, making sure you don't push help away is so important, because, it's a very complex condition. And most people living with dementia, we know, will probably be living with other long-term conditions.
Yeah.
And it's just as important to understand that. So that it's not the dementia that's maybe causing something today. It could be that they're in pain because of their arthritis. So and that's why it's so important to not push help away and not put the shutters down and think, we'll
so
just
I'm
have
really
to
glad to see, how our own Emeraldness, have so many.
that sounds a really positive, really positive development.
Anyway.
It is a start, because obviously you say there's only one, but we also need to make sure that the other health and care services are starting to be more inclusive and understand that there's a need for them to start engaging with their communities, whatever that might look like. So, and I suppose a couple more questions would be, in what ways can UK healthcare providers adapt their communication styles, or how they reach out to serve the Chinese community, the Chinese diaspora, and what do you think would be sort of some really useful steps?
I think the most important thing, obviously, I mean, this doesn't really just apply to Chinese. I would say it applies to any minority group.
Yes.
In this day, people call it what's called
global majority
community. Yeah, and sometimes I do find that terms too new to me because I keep teasing people. If you start to describe people like us, what happened to the Indian and the Chinese, they will say to you, we are the global majority.
We can go down a rabbit hole sometimes.
If you count them,
but it's trying to find a term. I mean, obviously, there's a term everybody will feel uncomfortable with, and some will feel more. But that's one of the terms. Another one is
I use it.
Minoritized communities.
I use that term as well.
Yeah.
But I just say it is a new terms that I get used to.
Indeed.
Okay. Obviously, it comes back to language and language barrier and cultural understanding. As long as whoever, if you work as a GP, you work as a doctor or nurse, the most important thing is have some type of cultural difference awareness. You know that this person probably cannot speak to you directly anyway. So the upbringing, their culture, will be very different to yours. So it's you appreciate that, you will say things in more appropriate way. You automatically would, I'm sure, because you're a professional person, how to say something in slightly indirect, but still express the same meaning, but make the person feel more comfortable. Like, for instance, a lot of Chinese family would not want the parents to know straight away that they got terminal cancer, full stop. And some of the doctor just treated just what's wrong with that. I'm just telling you what's wrong with you. They will jump straight up.
Indeed. We're saying, well, I'm only telling you the facts.
This is what happened to you. You should have a maximum lifespan of 6 months type of thing. I know that's a professional way. I mean, it's not lying to you.
No.
I understand that. But sometimes if you know that certain people may not be able to take it so quickly, can absorb the bad news so quickly, and they might go mad, they might react badly, and you never know. So consult the person that come with them first. If it is the children, for instance. I know you got only 10 minutes per patient and talking to them. Everything is in a rush, but spend a bit of time checking things out like this. If you do that, sometimes the message can be passed on a bit later time, or even the children will give some hint to that person first before you tell them directly.
Help sort of prepare the ground a bit.
So I think as long as you have that type of appreciation, And you got to be more patient because when you're using an interpreter,
yes,
because everyone's counting 10 minutes per patient.
Yes.
But
you can't if you've got an you've got to add. You've got another probably another 10 minutes onto that.
You just say I'm using an interpreter here.
Yeah.
And it will be unfair to the patient.
Yes.
Instead of having a 10 minutes full consultation,
they're not going to. They're going to
5 minutes.
Yeah, when you take out the interpreter time, you've got 5 or less.
I think the most important thing is for health provider, a clinician have that awareness. If they have that appreciation there, I think things will become a lot easier for people who can communicate with them directly.
And that's particularly important when you look at sort of the kind of the two big diagnoses that people most fear, is either probably cancer and dementia now. So in a way, there's that correlation where you think, well, if maybe a family member, wife, son has come and said, we're worried about mum, dad, then again, that's where you need to have that maybe that family focused approach because of what you obviously said about the way that dementia may be viewed anyway, but also the fact that you need to allow sort of time if it requires some interpretation or translation for that to be conveyed in a way that will be able for the person to digest initially.
Okay.
Because it's a big they're both big diagnoses anyway for anybody, regardless of their ethnicity. If you're telling somebody that you think they may have some significant memory problems and it could be this sort of illness,
that's right.
Then that goes by and by. But obviously there's another layer to factor in when you're looking at somebody where they maybe somebody from the Chinese diaspora and that stigma is still a biggie. And you need to be very mindful of how you treat.
This is why now we have new terms now. Here in Hong Kong, in Taiwan, here in the UK, we have a new terms, or even 2 new terms to basically saying some type of deterioration related to brain function. Yes. So it's not much more gentle,
much softer.
Much telling you you're mad, you got nothing. I mean, people
are just going to react, aren't they?
Well, I think China increasingly is trying to look into new terms because China has been using the old term for many years,
which has probably not been helpful because it's just reinforcing that negativity, isn't it? So that's it. That's helpful to see that because we know it's a global issue now. Dementia is. I think there's projections for it to be around 55 million people in about 2040.
I think the amount of death caused by dementia here in the UK is increasing.
It's the leading cause of death now in the UK. So
if you can say, rather than dying of some type of heart disease or something like this, more people die of dementia.
They are. And it's 1 in 3 people that are expected to be affected by it. And that doesn't include their family members. So you add family members.
Well, I always look at the dementia sufferer are the family member and the carers, not the patient. I know a lot of people say you're the patient, you're the dementia sufferer. The way I look at it is the carers. That's the dementia sufferer.
It's both, because obviously you've got the person living with dementia who's got that direct impact, but yes, you've got the impact, those wider impacts on family, close family, and how they have to navigate, what's going to happen over the next 5-10 years. And also you've got the various types of dementia because there is no one type. We've got around 250 subtypes, so there's lots to
try to explain to people. There are so many types. Well, and people just scratch their head.
Obviously, we keep it simple and probably say 5 or 6, but in reality, there's so many that underpin that. And I think the thing that people struggle with, regardless of somebody's ethnicity, is because it's a complex disease and you've got the combination of the person's health, their own personality, what's happening in the brain, the environment, all of those things interact into how that person might respond, might communicate or not. And they all have an impact, which is why people say, why were they fine this morning and they're not fine now? Again, it's not a simple, well, you did this and this, because sometimes there are things going on, sometimes within the person's brain, that we don't know, but also out, you know, around them that you haven't always appreciated. So, for example, you know, in lots of communities, ethnic minority communities, minority communities, we have family and extended family plays a big part, but actually sometimes that can be a bit too much for the person living with dementia. Having lots of people all coming at once and wanting to interact with them is like overload. So, so again, it's something families often have to learn themselves over time and navigate, that they actually have to adapt. You can't expect the person with dementia to adapt. You have to adapt and accommodate things around them. So it is a learning process, which is why it's so important to reach out and get that help.
Our nurse train carers as well. There's carer support groups there. They actually make carer a lot aware of all these issues that you mentioned. Suddenly, the impact of 10 people sitting around the person.
It's like,
what's happening?
Absolutely, they can't process it. There's too much going on. It's too frightening. It's
even make their room, their house more simple to navigate. That type of things. And it is good training for carers and family members. Definitely good.
It is, and ends nicely on the last point I was just going to make, because I've just seen a report from Alzheimer's Society today about the lack of training. And only 29% of social care staff in England who've had any sort of dementia training, which is quite a worrying statistic. But actually, you know, there's a big piece of work that we have to do as a society to help make life easier for everybody who's impacted by dementia. So I think on that note, we'll probably end our chat. So thank you very much, Eddie. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time and sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.